Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio. We're exciting news. We have our next 7-day challenge starts October 20th. The first one we did a couple weeks back, which was the idea of when we outsource or borrow desire and how do we own our sexual energy better.
Struck home with me.
And then this one is really aimed at the higher desire spouses and how a lot of times there is an element of it can turn into chasing as a higher desire spouse rather than actually leading towards what it is that you're seeking or wanting, or letting your desire be felt and known rather than I'm trying to chase something to feel complete or full or connected. So how do I flip that script? And I just invite it better. I lead towards it better. And then I hold on to myself regardless of how it goes.
Perfect.
And so this will be a fun one. It starts October 20th. Registration's open now. You can find more information at smr.fm/lead. And it's $100 for the 7-day live access, or $175 gets you the VIP access, which means you can have it for a lifetime. And Academy members, there'll be a code in the platform on the Academy section only that allows you to join at the $100 level to get the VIP level. Correct. Okay. So that's coming up now in a couple of weeks. Take advantage of it. It's a fun 7-day challenge. It's a quick deep dive, something new every single day that just walks you through a process. And so come join us. And on Sexy Marriage Radio, where we're having straightforward, honest conversations, this is going to be a diving into an email that came in from a husband. And so we're just jump right in. We're going to spend the whole show, their version and extended content, talking through this. And so this is saying, hey, Corey and Pam, longtime listener, first time emailing in. I'm the higher desire spouse. My wife and I have been married for 21 years, and we have had a great sex life over the years. But just in the past couple of weeks, I've been struggling with premature ejaculation. We've never experienced this before in our marriage. Our relationship is good. We are having problems with our kids. I do not feel stressed out with work. And in the last 8 out of the 10 sexual encounters, I've ejaculated in less than 2 minutes after penile-vaginal sex starts. I don't look at porn or masturbate, and I always try to direct my sexual energy towards my wife. Frequency on average is 2 to 3 days a week. My wife has an orgasm during intercourse every time, unless it's a quickie that she's offering me. She is ticklish. A quickie happens on average once or twice a month. So just to kind of set the context, she is ticklish, so oral has always been out of the question. She doesn't mind digital play during foreplay, but as she gets turned on, she only wants to go to penile-vaginal for orgasm. So I know that I'm in my head about this, and I'm not sure what the plan forward is if I cannot bring her to orgasm before I ejaculate. She's understandably frustrated as well, as I am knowing that I'm letting her down. So any advice would be greatly appreciated, signed in my head, which is exactly what's going on here. He's gotten into his own head with a dynamic that's now all of a sudden, whoa, this has never been a problem before in 21 years. Why now?
Why now? Yeah.
So there's a couple things that just jump out from the email.
Okay.
Because he even is onto it in the queue and queuing into what are some of the circumstances that may have changed in our surroundings, as he realizes maybe this isn't a physical thing or a physiological thing. It's a psychological thing. And so the one thing that jumps out is he talks about there's no real new stress at work, no real dynamics or big changes, other than we are having some trouble with our kids. And that can wreak a lot of havoc where we don't even realize.
It can.
Wait a second. I wouldn't even think that correlates to this, but it could be a component of it.
It can. I mean, you think about, you got trouble with the kids and then are you guys on the same page as far as parenting and how to deal with that, how to cope with it?
Because depending on what the situation is, that can really magnify a difference that's always just been under the threshold.
Yeah, it can. I mean, he's not referring to them not being on the same page on this, but,
right.
But certainly, if there's other listeners out there, those are. And then the other
component that's important is to realize this is what's reliably happening and working for her, which then means if he can't last long enough, it won't work for her, which is just an added pressure. And sometimes for whatever reason, that becomes a bigger issue in your own head and the pressure you feel within it because of just something. I mean, there's maybe we can put a finger on it, and but sometimes you just can't. It's just like, whoa, something's shifted.
Yeah. So he has premature ejaculation once, and then now it's in the head.
Yeah,
right?
or once or twice, because sometimes you can just be like, well, that was weird. And then you're back to just rolling along like nothing's changed, right? And then sometimes it's like, wait a second, there's still that element in there. And then you start getting back and caught up in this, when's it going to happen again? Man, there's something wrong. And so first off, on a big picture thing, you're not broken. There's nothing broken here. And one of the things I would advise right off the bat is this just oftentimes means your nervous system has gotten loud, right? There's something going on and internally that's just gotten more loud, which is that voice in the side of your head, or when's the next shoe going to drop, or when's this going to happen again, or what if I can't last that long, or all these little things that are starting to creep in when used to that wasn't an issue. And so that becomes an issue where we oftentimes in our world will turn to, how do I turn down the sensations? That's the old adage of think about baseball to be able to last longer, which actually will tend to backfire.
Right. So you're saying don't do that.
Right. Because that ends up being a disconnect between the two of you. When the counterintuitive idea is, how do I lean into this for better connection, but just a different type of connection? And I'll have to ride a wave a little bit where this might continue for a little bit. It's okay. The point is, what am I learning how do I master myself in the midst of it? Because when we get into sexual dynamic issues, a lot of times we want quick fixes. We live in a world of quick fixes. Viva la Viagra, right?
Yeah, well, all the medication.
Absolutely, but they were the ones that kind of led the charge of, oh, here, bing, take a pill, hard, done. And then, okay, wait, what's the internal processing on our emotional nervous system level going on, not just a circulatory level? So realizing that the main driver is often going to be anxiety and total stimulation, as well as then context and meaning. That's the playground where you start looking at the bigger picture.
Okay, that's a lot of things to think about.
It is. And so we'll keep unpacking this some, because this is all going to come from there. And then there's also it's not about technique. This is about a growing up possibility for both he and his wife, right? Because this is going to challenge her as well. So I don't want to think that she's just a passenger along this thing.
Agreed. Oh, I guess that was part of my question, but we'll get there.
Go.
Well, this is the only way she wants to have orgasm, and
it's the most reliable way she has found. Which, good on her.
The wording makes it sound like she's dug her heels in and I don't want to have orgasm any other way. This is how you say you need to get fixed. That's how it sounded to me. Okay. That may be not how he intends it, but that's how it sounded.
Well, that might be how that might not be how she intends it. That's how he interprets it.
Fair.
Right. But it's again, these are meaning opportunities to challenge. Can I broaden it to see it as, wait, yes, we've got a way that's reliable. I mean, you and I have been together for 32 years. And so we've come across reliable paths, but there's also still merit and benefit to expanding that.
Well, if you want to add any spice and have any excitement, yes, just relying on reliable all the time can, even if it feels good, can get boring.
Right. Right. Because again, this is where you start looking at the overall patterns, not just, okay, am I lasting long enough? And so we'll kind of look at this through 3 different lanes, if you could talk about it. All right. So lane 1 is out of the bed, out of the bedroom. And this is just learning to retrain your nervous system in everyday encounters that you maybe are not even aware are above, they're just below the threshold, but that doesn't mean you can't still tune into them.
I mean, do you have examples of what you're talking about?
So it's the idea of, Schnarch has a technique he's created called hugging till relaxed to help learn this in close proximity with each other, which is the idea where you come in and you actually hug each other, standing on your own 2 feet, and you learn to just focus on yourself and quiet down and tune into what's going on with you, not what's going on with your spouse. Because a lot of times we come into a hug and we are usually tuning into and feeling and kind of engaging our spouse. That's where the focus is. It's like, oh, I get to be around her. yeah, I like this. And I'm not discounting. I love that with you. But there's importance to, all right, how do I learn to just gauge what's going on with me? Do I find where my breathing changes? Do I find where my heart rate changes? Do I find where my emotions spike or settle? Or because I can figure out myself when I'm with somebody that I care about. Because again, the same signals that are under the surface sent during sex happen during other touches too.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you can tell how I'm doing if you reach out for my hand while we're walking. If you're paying attention, you would know, like if I'm quick to grab it, or something's off from the normal way I would do it, or I don't hold your hand the way I normally would. You know, all of that is just data points. And what you want to do is figure out, what does that do to me as I'm interpreting things, rather than what's going on with them. Because think about how we would do that in sex. You're tuning into, are they enjoying this? Are they into this? Is she almost there? Is he almost there? It's enough already. I mean, all these things that you're reading each other at the expense of what's going on with me.
Gotcha. So when you're talking about, I mean, you're back to the like hugging to relax, things out of the bedroom, you're referring to not just sensory things when he's on his own and not about his spouse, but you're talking about sensory things of the two of them together.
Yes. Like when you see each other across the room during an evening together, and you would interpret a mannerism or a phrase or a look in a certain way. Okay, well, what's going on with you as you interpret that? This is just a learning of myself to then retrain it.
Okay.
Right? Because I'll have times, I mean, classic example, that even when we're not together, and I'll call you in the middle of a busy season, which is now. And there are some times where you're like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? You know, and it's because I caught you at a time where you were wanting to talk to me, or you had some time or whatever. But then there's other times where I've called and you'll answer and I'm interrupting you. And it's very obvious in the way you answer, because I called in the middle of a workday. I'm taking a risk. I don't know. But I used to interpret that as, man, what did I do wrong? All these different, you know, I personalize it rather than, I need to personalize it a little bit because I did interrupt you. But the way you're interacting with me has very little bearing on the overall status of how you view me in our relationship.
Yeah.
It's not like you're all of a sudden unattracted to me and, man, I can't believe it. And now all of a sudden everything's gone and changed. Instead,
it just means my brain is somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah. But I can personalize the fact that your brain is somewhere else and not on me.
Sure.
And so
it should be on me.
Absolutely. I am the most important person in your world. Okay, good answer. But it's realizing I have opportunities to learn me. And that's the same mechanism you're going to use in the midst of sexual encounters, of just trying to learn my nervous system better, understand my emotions better, understand what I'm reading better. And so what you would look for is, does your chest or breath tighten or stress or spike if you're connected? Or, I mean, or do your feet clench? Do your hands clench? Do your shoulders clench? Do you mentally leave? Do you get distracted from things? So it's all about trying to just, now, how do I tune back in? Because all of this is a way to learn how to connect. And so when you recognize these patterns, regardless of what you're doing, if it's hugging till relaxed or just trying to tune into what's our normal reactions and interactions throughout a day, how can I hold on to myself in the moment and keep contact? How can I even slow my breath down a little bit? How can I settle myself down? How can I lean in and not pull away? How can I maintain a presence? That's all tremendous data points to start learning myself better.
Okay.
Right? And so lane B, and this is the idea of in bed, of what you can do. And so this is about pace and presence, right? And so obviously you've got the possibility of, how do you figure out together to collaborate to extend foreplay? Because the picture I'm hearing, tell me if you've heard this hear this differently, because I hear this a lot in different couples. So I'm kind of extrapolating several different to use it as a sample size and expand it to the rest. The picture I'm hearing is foreplay goes to a point where now she's fully engaged and ready and interested. And now it's like she sends the signal of, okay, it's time to transition to penile-vaginal. Let's go. I don't know if she says it or anything, but there's something that's like, all right, let's go. I want you on top of me, or whatever it might be.
Okay.
Right. So one is, how do you take your time more in that buildup? How do you slow that down a little bit? Which then means now she's going to be challenged.
Okay.
Because it's pushing the envelope a little bit of what she's more comfortable with or used to, or what's more reliable. Because he made the comment about ticklishness, right? That she's ticklish. And so oral sex is off the table because there's a lot of sensations that happen. And sometimes you're too soft or too tentative, which then translates into ticklishness.
Okay.
And so a lot of times, that means have a conversation about with the ticklishness. Is it because of softness? This is out of the bedroom conversation. Am I too tentative? Am I too soft on this? And that's what creates it. What if I was a little more pressure? What if there's a little more boldness? Because you can cure ticklishness too. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
And you want to know how you cure ticklishness?
How's that?
The exact same process we're talking about right now.
Oh, just going through the sensory. How do I feel? What am I sensing? What's going through my brain?
Right, because when you are realizing that I can handle and settle myself down, I can cure a lot of the stimuli that will elicit things in me by doing that. That's why you can't tickle yourself, right?
Okay.
We can't.
Fair.
We are not ticklish if I'm trying to tickle myself.
True. True. I have never been able to do that.
So it's not about the sensation as much as it is I don't have control of myself in those moments. And so now I'm going to learn, how do I control myself better, which is the same thing he's trying to do to tackle this issue.
I have a question that I may be getting us off track. Okay. So stop me and say we're not going there today if this is it. He said in his email, correct me if I'm wrong, that she orgasms every time they have
sounds like reliably every time they have penile-vaginal intercourse. Yes.
How common is that?
It's usually 25, give or take, % of women can.
Well, can, but
I don't know
all
about
the time.
I don't know about that. I mean, if you're capable of it and it becomes a reliable path in the brain and the neural networks, then yeah, you could every time.
Yeah. This is just my novice. I'm clueless on this. I'm thinking of my own journey and the times that I'm still ticklish. This is me, not her.
That's fine.
But it's just me asking a question. If I'm still ticklish, typically my head's not in the game. Okay. When I'm totally into sex, my ticklishness goes away.
That's true.
And so I feel like I'm bringing up something I don't need to bring up.
But
is her head really there? Is she really orgasming every time?
The same concept. Well, we can't answer that question.
I can't answer that. I'm just curious.
But the same concept still happens of what's going on emotionally and with our nervous system and our connectedness is the driver here, not biology as much. It's obviously got some biology component. Absolutely.
Right.
But
I'm just thinking it sets expectation for him.
And there's the pressure.
And is there a disconnect there on what's really happening?
And there's the pressure.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden what that requires, quote unquote, is he has to satisfy. He has to fulfill and play his role correctly.
Yeah.
For her to achieve it. And as Schnarch would say, nobody gives you an orgasm. You do it yourself. And I don't mean it as masturbatory. You have to seek it yourself.
You have to seek it. You have to be there mentally and physically.
There's a connectedness that can come about it too. But when we have this phraseology of, I can bring them to orgasm, well, because you've got the right technique. That's a
technique
component.
And tool.
That's a component of it for sure. But there's also what's missing is how do I bring my part of the equation to it for myself as well?
Yeah.
How do I engage with this more? And so it's recognizing in bed, how do they delay it a little bit, get her closer to orgasm a little bit, because then it can just take some of the pressure off is the goal. And then they can still do penile-vaginal. That's fine. But if you can get it to where it's delayed and there's a better buildup, maybe it shortens the, now I've got to last and have the stamina, because then it can just take the pressure and it can then decouple his adequacy easier on, can I provide this for her?
His perception of his adequacy.
That's the way we would interpret it. I mean, can do it too on this is that proverbial, I'm not enough for them. That's an adequacy statement.
Yeah.
I'm not adequate. And it's like, well, but that's on both of you. It's not just one person. So it's realizing, and then in the extended content, I'll go into some specific technique ideas that we can talk about here in just a second. And then the last one is just having a teamwork, a collaborative approach to this. And this means having some state of things conversations, right? Because obviously she knows what's going on. She's disappointed. She feels, she knows there's an issue. She knows something's changed too. It's like, wait a second. That was a lot faster. If she didn't know that what was going on, then that's a different issue.
Sure.
That we need to be talking about instead. But instead of, so it's having conversations where you're learning to hold on to yourself, and then you're also being able to, instead of chase results, you're able to stay connected. So they could start with penile-vaginal intercourse whenever it transitions to that point, and he starts to feel the build up, and where most men should be and need to be familiar with, where's my point of no return? Because unlike a woman, a man will reach a point where it's like, there ain't nothing I can do to stop the orgasm from happening. Okay. Whereas women can, a lot of times, because of the way the wiring is, it can be interrupted and they can stop a little easier. But we won't go down that rabbit trail too much.
Not for today's episode.
Yeah, not for today's episode. But it's being able to have conversations of, when he starts to feel that building, and whatever their normal rhythm of penile-vaginal intercourse is, being able to have a conversation in the midst of it to say, hey, wait, I'm not going anywhere. I just want to settle myself down for a moment, which is going to break her rhythm and break her expectation or pattern or whatever it is that she wants.
But that could be actually one of the most beautiful times when you guys are working together to get past that, right? Get over that hump, to work together to make this better. That could be a pretty beautiful thing.
And the other thing is, these are some of the things you could bring up outside of to kind of be preparatory, which can be kind of what we're talking about, but it's just a specific question of, hey, can we build a little more foreplay before we move into penile-vaginal? I think that'll help me, if that'll give me a bigger runway to kind of slowly build and focus on you. Because sometimes you can also do this, you go, I go, and you add that to your repertoire. Because we also put a lot of pressure on, well, we need to do this together. Absolutely. That's a goal to strive for, but sometimes it's good to change it up and strive for something a little bit different, because it changes the dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, in this situation, that would be a little bit hard if he's already gone and then he can't stay erect for her.
Sure.
And that's the only way she orgasms, without, using a toy or something
which there's another option.
That difficult.
Well, there's another option that who knows where that could be explored and introduced, if that is something they were willing and interested in doing. But it's still just recognizing, how do you have conversations so he can cue her in on, here's some of the things I'm trying. So it's not surprised and it's not disconnect in the moment.
Yeah, you certainly don't want surprise coming in that.
Right. Because if all of a sudden you're in the middle of your normal penile-vaginal rhythm and you stop, it usually is going to be known. What's going on?
I would hope that you can figure that one out.
What happened here? And so sometimes just having that conversation of, hey, I want to try. Some of the times I may slow down, or I may pause and try to steady my breathing. And in that moment, take over if you want to. You go ahead and do the moving. Do some grinding instead, or something which doesn't quite create as much stimulus on the penis, particularly on the more sensitive parts towards the tip of the penis, right? But it can still be very enjoyable for a wife. And so it's just having those kinds of dialogues ahead of time. Now, all of a sudden, what that does is that sets a precedent for collaboration. That's what you're trying to create in the moment. It's just harder to do it in the moment if I haven't laid some groundwork beforehand.
Absolutely. All right. And you're going to go into techniques then in Xtended.
Yeah. If you want that, you're going to want to join us in the Xtended content, smr.fm/academy, if you're not already a member. And if you are, we'll see you there.